Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. It's me again, Jen. Hello. And it is the 17th of September, and we are, having cards that jump all over the place. We are reading from the Goddess Tarot that is written and illustrated by Chris Waller. And this is a deck that has been in my collection for quite some time. And being that it is the new moon, this deck is going to come out. We are doing a virtual red tent today, but we are doing our red tent on the new moon. And usually I draw from this deck from the major arcana mostly. So I'm going to be separating out the cards tonight to kind of let that be part of our experience, even though it is virtual. So we'll see what happens there. And we will see what happens now with the cards that we draw for today. Well, what are we picking apart today? Oh, we are picking apart a card that I guess kind of relates to the new moon and cycles and things of that nature. Maybe not in the most positive way. It is the card of the Wawalak. And again, please forgive me of any mispronunciations of goddess names or names of these characters because my understanding of pantheons is pretty limited and I'm always learning, but I do learn from reading and I totally guess at how to pronounce some of this stuff. So the Wawalak in this case represent oppression. And the oppression card is obviously not the traditional name of this card. It is traditionally the Tower. So I find this to be really interesting that the Tower card in this case doesn't have a tower. So we'll go into what to make of that. But I do kind of want to go into how oppression is actually a really good name for the Tower card if you're not going to say the Tower. Because it really does represent that oppressive right before a fall or as things are kind of falling apart and we don't know what to do and it's just this giant weight on our shoulders and we're kind of freaking out and there's all this anxiety and that's what the Tower really represents and embodies is all of the anxiety and the oppression and the stress of massive change that is unexpected out of our control. So the story of the Wawalak actually relates more to like this little lake or watering hole that's behind them. And that is because they're twin goddesses. And they're twin goddesses with twin infants. And this is really a kind of depressing story, but it is an interesting story. And it also says a lot about kind of that menstrual cycle of women and how other cultures view it. So again, it is new moon, and new moon is red tent for the people that I kind of hang out with. And I've been doing this for a long time, and we will be doing a virtual red tent tonight. So which is why I'm wearing red today. And the Wawalak, the sisters, somehow contaminated the watering hole of the great serpent, which whose name totally eludes me at the moment. But they contaminated the watering hole with their menstrual blood, or one of them did. I don't remember the whole story. But either way, it looks at the blood of women on their cycle to be, I guess, contaminated or unhealthy or whatever it may be. This culture looks at it as unclean. So they contaminate the watering hole, and therefore the serpent comes along and eats them both, swallows them and their children whole. So they weep and they cry and they try to appease the serpent. And I don't know if it's their tears or the serpent's tears, but either way, the great river is flooded. And so that's not a positive thing apparently in this story for the great river to flood and swell and all these bad things happen. And they cry and weep inside the serpent's belly until they are reborn. So they're goddesses and they are reborn and they are children and they have infants but they're also mothers at the same time. And there's a whole lot going on in the meanings. There's a whole lot to unpack in what the story of the Wawalak represents. And if anybody has any interesting insight on that, please let me know. Because I have a hard time finding some of these more you know, it's like when you're looking for Greek and Roman mythology, it's easy to find. But past that, you're like, I don't know. You get to Egyptian and Aboriginal and even Hindu and things like that, and it's a little more difficult to like just happen upon this information. So the Wawalak represent that sort of you make a mistake and it's out of your control. I mean, clearly they don't have control over their menstrual cycles. They don't have control over these things and they contaminate this water hole and they are left to deal with the consequences, as is the rest of their valley because of something that they did that wasn't in their control. So you look at this card and go, oh, that kind of understands the oppression in that side of it. Because there's no there's really no justice in this story and there's no control over it and they don't really know what's going to happen to them and this great serpent just comes along and kind of does whatever is going to happen. And I think it would have been really neat to have the great serpent be like this column in the center as the tower about to come down on them, but that's the artist's choice not to represent the great serpent. I do, however, see the clouds in the sky, which, as we know from other cards and other representations of clouds, when they have kind of a darkness to them, that's not a good sign. Clouds that are white and fluffy and happy and all those things represent thought and dreams and experiences of the mind, whereas when the clouds are gray or dark or swirling of any kind, that's not good news. That means the mind is at unrest, there is a lot of confusion, there is stress, there is oppression, there is all those things. So you can see it coming on the horizon to these women who are sitting there holding their crying children. And hopefully the story ends with them being reborn and in a positive way, not just, oh, they lost their children and now they are the only ones reborn. But if anybody has information on that story, please let me know. I would love to know more about that story. It's super interesting. And I do think that in some ways, the idea of the valley flooding is it's bad at the moment, but again, if you flood, the ground becomes more fertile, it becomes wet so you can actually grow things in. So there is that cycle. There is that sort of reprieve from, you know, bad things happen, but positive things come from it. So that's kind of how I look at this card is, and usually this is how I look at the card when the tower comes up in any reading is I know today is rough but tomorrow's going to be better because you can't get any worse. And this is planting the seeds for better things. So always, I always feel like looking at the Tower card as it's bad, but it's only as bad as it's going to get. So there is brightness on the other side. So I kind of tend to look at the Tower card as what's the silver lining in this? What can we say that is a positive spin? So hopefully with the Wawalak, their story also has kind of a positive spin. With all that said, it is Thursday, so we are rolling into the weekend, and hopefully the weekend card is a little bit better and a little bit more positive. Feel free, as always, to check out the links in the description below to check out all of the cool stuff that I do if you have questions about having a reading or lessons or anything like that. Also, if you are interested in the other cards that we have read from the Goddess Tarot this month or any of the decks that we've looked at, check out the playlist linked in at the end here and check out all the cards. There's some really neat stuff that we've looked at throughout the past couple months. So until next time, have a wonderful new moon. Spend some time thinking and contemplating and being at peace with yourself for the good and the bad in the world. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!